Hello, everyone. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Shadab. We have everything from AI-driven tax reform ideas to some pretty stunning cybersecurity breakthroughs. It's a little bit more behind that, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. I mean, Anthropic unveiled a model, didn't release it because it's just too powerful to release. We'll talk about serious software vulnerabilities that it discovered, which was basically it would be terrifying if they released it. So they're putting brakes on it.
Yeah, we'll also talk about how the AI business war is actually heating up. OpenAI came out with new ChatGPT pricing. Meta's got a new model called Muse Spark, and Microsoft actually launched its own set of in-house Mia, however you pronounce it, models, which we'll get into.
And talking about business, OpenAI may give actually retail investors access to its future IPO because this saw tremendous response. And Perplexity is trying to become your AI powered financial advisor.
And we'll hit all that plus Anthropic, amazing revenue growth, and it's almost hard to believe what they've been able to accomplish over the last year.
True, it's insane. Let's get into it.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
This week, let's talk about our thought of the week is going to be, there are a couple of studies actually that came out, and put them holistically. We will give a synthesized version of what that means. One of the studies by Goldman Sachs, and they showed what they did is they actually compared different data points, their own study, as well as they took the data from the Department of Labor, and they basically identified different jobs that AI can actually substitute, and the job that AI augment, right? So these are the two different types of jobs. One that AI can easily substitute, automate, etc. Basically eliminate those jobs. And the augmentation is one where it cannot eliminate, but it really works well with human in conjunction. So it's like an AI augmentation. And it talks about what's happening to those jobs, right? The one that have a high AI substitution score and the one that has high AI augmentation score. So they took that study and they put together, some charts. For example, let's see on the screen that we have here. What you will see here is two types of, or rather, three types, right? So the one that you see the trend line, which is basically in the red, is going down. What it means is that these are the jobs that can easily be actually substituted. And those jobs could be, for example, things like the bank clerk, for example, right? That could be an example of that kind of job. And on the other hand, there are jobs which actually work really well when AI augments. Like it could be a physician, for example, or a construction manager, things like that, right? So it cannot readily substitute them, but it really works with augmentation better. And you can see the one there where AI augmentation score is high, which is represented here in the darker blue color, that is increasing, right? So those jobs are actually thriving. And the ones that have high AI substitution score, those jobs are actually declining. So that's what really is happening in this study. Net, what they're saying is in their study, what they found is, and they did some regression analysis. It's not like directly available data. So they had to do the analysis and identify these things. But what they said is that the AI substitution has wiped out roughly 25,000 jobs per month in the past year, while augmentation has added back about 9,000 jobs. So net, you have 16,000 jobs lost per month in the past year based on this competing trends that they're seeing in the market. Now,
So I'm no mathematician. But I would think losing 16,000 jobs a month is not good.
Not good at all. And particularly, it is hitting, unfortunately, the Gen Z harder, right? So these are entry level jobs. These are the jobs that Gen Z generally starts with the job, right? So it's becoming harder for the Gen Z to actually get started in the market. And that's what you also see, Jamie, that we have seen time and time again, that there are actually the choice of majors in the colleges, the what people are actually looking for is changing. But I will tell you also one thing. We look at these data a lot, right? Every week on week basis, I would say that it's not like 100% one unidirectional finding, right? I mean, there are contradictory findings that keep coming. This study is trying to actually combine both the competing trend and trying to see a net effect basically on the economy.
Yeah, it certainly hits home. I mean, as I just mentioned at the top of the show, my son's graduating. He's doing his job search right now, and it's certainly the amount of jobs that are here and available now are certainly less than they were 10 years ago, let alone even 5 years ago. And it's certainly been something that's seen that AI is certainly. I'll be bold and say it, as we said already with these numbers, it's taking away some of those entry level jobs because you're able to just spend $20, $100 on something like ChatGPT or starting to build agents, and you could really do a lot. And that's taking away some of that entry level work that typical kids coming out of college, coming out of high school would have been doing previously. So it's certainly there, and I see it firsthand.
And you're absolutely right, Jamie. One of the other effect, what is happening is that the loss of the internships also, right? So the jobs is one thing, but kids actually need the internships during the college years to actually really learn, so that they get a little bit ready before they start the job. And those internships are also declining, unfortunately. A lot of companies are just simply taking a lazy route, I would say, by dropping those internships. I think there is a responsibility angle here, right? Talk about the corporate responsibility. It is important for the corporates to make sure that those opportunities exist, because the internships are constantly declining. In fact, the chief data scientist officer, RJ Patil, I believe, if I'm not wrong, in the previous administration, he actually also floated an idea that, because of this disturbing trend of internships declining, he actually wants to do some sort of initiative looking for partnership from people where, people can actually come together, create internships projects, right? So it doesn't have to be only corporate driven. People can create projects, and that's a wonderful way, right? I mean, you can still get an experience. It may not be directly by corporate, but you can still get some hands-on learning. So that's those kind of initiatives people are also taking to actually counter these kind of effects.
And again, I see that firsthand. My son, started a project last year, doing a lot of things that would have been done in corporate America, and it's helped in his job search already.
Exactly. I mean, I saw that Jamie, your son, took its own initiative, right? At that project that he actually launched, that was amazing. And I think those are the things that students have to do a lot more rather than just simply depending on the corporate job. Yep. The other thing is, the other aspect of this is there's another study that also came out. I would say a little bit of a good news is that, as per a study at MIT, the AI automation is a continuum between crashing waves, where AI capabilities surge abruptly over small sets of tasks, right? And like basically substitution type, and rising tides, where the increase in AI capability is more continuous and broad-based. So essentially what they're saying is it's not like a sudden, drop in the jobs and suddenly everything is gone and the doomsday scenario. It's going to be a gradual increase. So based on their study, what they found is that they look at 3,000 broad-based tasks derived from the US Department of Labor, which are text-based, and they are LLM addressable. Basically, I can easily, substitute them, right? So they did that analysis, and what they found is that AI models successfully completed tasks that take humans approximately 3 to 4 hours with about a 50% success rate. And that was back in 2024 Q2. Now that has increased to about 65% by 2025 Q3, right? Just end of last year. And if that continues, they expect that the task, that the success rate will be about 80 to 95% by 2029, which will bring it to a minimally sufficient quality level at par with humans, so that it is considered completely replaceable. So what they're saying is that the pace of this is not as fast as or rapid as generally sometimes talked about. It's going to take time. It's a gradual rise of tide, rather than, or rather they're saying that it's rather between a tide and a wave, crashing wave, it's somewhere in between. And for some jobs, it might feel like a wave, and for some jobs, it may feel like a tide, basically. On the other hand, there were some also debates, like Vinod Khosla, he was one of the co-founder at Sun. He proposed eliminating federal income taxes for Americans earning under $100,000, and et cetera, right? And Sam Altman also actually supported that idea, et cetera. So I think that debate continues. What will really happen, honestly, and the impact, and how do you counter these kind of impacts? I don't think there is a clear picture. I don't think there is a clear conclusion yet. What will happen is, we have seen different studies. One of the Harvard economists also actually assessed that there was about 4% GDP growth solely because of the AI data center, right? So keep in mind that it's not just the software engineer job, but there are a lot of other indirect jobs that also generate because of AI. So we will find out in a few years, to be honest.
Very true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Okay. Jamie, something I would say earth shattering that happened right this week. And I think, I would just kick it off by saying that Anthropic actually said that their next frontier model is Mythos 2. And it is so insanely good, that it is able to identify undetected vulnerabilities in whether it's in the operating system or applications or the browsers, and not a single one is immune from those vulnerabilities. Every single piece of software and the application they found has the vulnerabilities, so much so that it was able to find thousands of such day zero vulnerabilities. And compared to Opus 4.6, which is itself a frontier model just recently released, Opus 4.6 was able to, as you can see on the screen here, was able to only detect just a few, right, compared to this model. Um, and like just 14.4%. And this too also is just basically the trial that it was able to do, in like basically the like exploiting, right, those vulnerabilities, only 14.4% time. Mythos is basically successfully able to exploit 72.4% of those, and 11.6% tried, right? I mean, not fully successful, but it was able to actually do some level of control. Compare that to Opus 4.6, which was only 14.4%, some level of control. It could not do a single successful one. It's just insanely good. And which means that it's just so good that they decided that it is just not too safe to actually release it. So they say that they are going to basically have a smaller insider circle, the organization that are responsible, for example, Google, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Linux Foundation, and all those, and they will release. They've already done that. They're working with them because they've already identified thousands of those vulnerabilities, and those organizations are already actually taking initiative. For example, Microsoft has already published how they're actually using it, and they're already patching it. They're not even releasing the examples of those vulnerabilities which are not patched yet. They've only given the example of few vulnerabilities which are now patched already. So it is that insanely good.
So I'm going to take a slightly, I wouldn't call it a contrarian view on this, but let me maybe give a different perspective. I totally agree. This is probably, if not the one of the top models out there, whether publicly available or not, right? I think it's safe to say that every foundational frontier firm has a model that we have not seen yet. I guarantee you, OpenAI has one. I guarantee you, Google has the next version of Gemini, whether or not it's Gemini 4. Maybe OpenAI has, Chat or GPT 6. Maybe some other company, and we'll talk a little bit about Meta in a minute. But I look at this as, I'm not sure if this is a PR move or not. There's definitely a lot of foundational / important things of what this model has found, based upon the 0-day vulnerabilities that you were just mentioning. But why did Anthropic mention this now? If no one can use it. It's a research model. As you mentioned, only 27 or whatever it was, handful of companies right now can use it. We'll talk about the project in a minute with Glasswing, but not everybody can use this. So my question is this motivated somewhat to announce this because of, and I'm going to give you two different reasons. One, we know that Anthropic and OpenAI are going to go public at some point, whether it's this year or next year. Is this their way of actually getting more news out there? Like, oh my God, we've got this next model. Let me create some hype around that. No one's been able to test it. No one has when I say no one, the general public again. So you're announcing something, in my opinion, that almost puts fear, because this wasn't touted as next model that's going to be great at agents. It was, the press took everything on, oh my God, this is opening up potential security holes. And I know that the market had a field day with this when it was announced, whatever it was, 2 days ago. So that's one aspect that I think about. The other side of it is, we all know that Anthropic has had some issues with the government as of late. I'm not going to get into those details. We did a couple of episodes ago. But is this something else that they're putting out there? Like, oh, if you don't work with us, there's so many different potential security flaws that we can find out. I doubt that they're doing that, but I go back to this again, my contrarian view of why mention this. And I was listening to some other podcasts, and I'll give a nod to them on this, but they were mentioning, like, if you have a a defense contractor that says, oh, we've just developed the next ultimate drone and it can blow up anybody and spy on you any point in the day, but we're not going to release it. That's kind of instilling fear.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And these are excellent points, Jamie. I'll just add a few things before we need to move on to the other stories. Is what they've done is, as per them, right? They are saying that this kind of capability in their assessment will be available with their competition within the next 6 to 18 months. That's what they're saying. And they're saying that this is going to happen. This will put everybody at risk, but we want to take a responsible approach and we want to release it and work with these industry leaders who have these kind of apps and operating systems already. That's one thing. They also have said that, okay, they're giving basically $100 million in usage credits for this model Mythos preview. Across this effort, they've also set up some $4 million in donations to open source security organizations, etc. as well. I agree with you. Look, in the year of IPO, etc., Jamie, I don't think there is anything that these companies will do which will not be fully, I would say, charitable, right? They may have their commercial aspects on this one, no doubt about it. But I would say, given that Anthropic has such a high level of, they have set their persona in such a way that they are very responsible, they have their constitution AI, they are also saying that they will release a version of this model, not just this raw model, but a version that has safeguards in it, which cannot be exploited to find these vulnerabilities. They are saying that they will do that in the coming months or maybe this year itself. But that's what they're saying. And, if Meta had done that, to be honest, Jamie, I would totally not believe it. If Anthropic does it, maybe.
Yeah, they're definitely more credible of the frontier firms that are developing. And I feel more secure with them having this first than others.
Totally. Okay. So, I think before we wrap that up, that project is what is called Project Glasswing, where they're working with several, I think about almost 30, 40 companies, including Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and a bunch of others, all the security, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, etc. So that's what the Project Glasswing is.
So on to some rapid news after talking about Mythos. So OpenAI, again, seems to always be in the news. What's interesting here, I'm going to tie this back to Anthropic. OpenAI just dropped or came in with a new price point for their pro pricing, and it's now $100 a month for their pro tier. So that's obviously aimed at developers who are heavily reliant on Codex for coding workloads and the things that they do. It plans to bring 5 times more Codex capacity, more than the $20 a month plan. And it certainly obviously is positioned to be a direct competitor for Anthropic's longstanding pricing model, which has been the $100 for their sort of like pro equivalent. And this comes with some other quote unquote marketing fanfare, if you will, from OpenAI. They're kind of touting Codex as their use really exploding, 3 million weekly users, up 5x from 5 months ago. And they're mentioning that because they're also going to have a temporary offering to even have higher limits for the use of that through May 31st. So I kind of call it the carrot that's out there. Now, what's interesting is they still have the 200 a month plan, but I have not been able to see where it's publicly listed anymore. I don't know if that means they took it out, but you may still have the $200 plan, and you may still be able to see it, I guess, depending upon where you are. So in other news, talking about OpenAI, as I mentioned before, OpenAI and Anthropic are probably going to IPO at some point this year. So OpenAI's CFO, Sarah Friar, actually told CNBC in a recent interview that they're going to reserve a slice of that IPO or slice of those IPO shares for retail investors when it goes public. So that's great news for like me and you, Shadab, because I'll definitely buy a couple of shares. But they just went through a recent round of funding. It was 122 billion, chump change, right? And what they mentioned from that, or what Sarah mentioned, is that they saw a large retail demand, 3 times of what they expected, which that's where they kind of came up with, all right, we're going to put 3 billion aside, or had 3 billion come in from those individual investors. So well, time will tell. I didn't think we would get the opportunity. I thought it would just be institutionals that get a chance to gobble up the OpenAI stock when it comes out, but we'll see. It's probably ending up to, I would say, be end of year, maybe the first quarter of 2027.
Talking about investment, AWS CEO Matt Garman, he has defended Amazon's $50 billion investment in OpenAI on top of its existing $8 billion stake. Basically, they're trying to find the balance. They want to make sure they're not totally, just dependent on one company, Anthropic's investment, but their investments are diversified. I think that's the same thing Microsoft has taken as an approach as well. Microsoft has also invested in Anthropic in the recent times beyond OpenAI as well. So, smart strategy.
Yeah. So real quick on this one, Perplexity. Perplexity's still been out there, and we don't talk a lot about them, but they turned its computer assistant into a full-blown financial CFO right now. So they have new integration that they just rolled out with Plaid. It's only in the US and Canada, but it can securely link your bank accounts, credit cards, loans, and brokerage accounts, basically giving their AI assistant the ability to have a real-time look into your financials. And when you think about it, most people have different apps. I certainly do, but this will position Perplexity to be this centralized AI hub that can analyze your spend, track your net worth, look at potentially building custom dashboards on the fly, and even basically generate full financial tools that you could use on demand. So again, if you're okay with giving up your credentials, there's a lot of things that these could actually do.
Okay, let's talk about some launches. Milla Jovovich. If people don't remember, there was a movie, Fifth Element. She was actually one of the lead actress along with Bruce Willis in that movie. Wonderful movie, sci-fi. I loved it. And then she was also actually the lead actress in the Resident Evil movie series. I think a lot of people would know. She actually, believe it or not, she's also now creating AI solutions. So she has teamed up with one of the leading engineer, Ben Sigmund, to release something called MemPalace. And it's an open source project tackling AI's long-term memory issues. So what happens is usually you are interacting with, let's say, ChatGPT, right, or Anthropic, you're generating the conversations. Now, it's going to remember some memory if you have enabled it, right? But it's only memory. It's not like the entire conversation are gone, right? It discards it. The problem is that there's a lot of insights in that conversation. Rather than just the conclusion, there is this whole context of why this has happened, right? What has been. So we lose all that context. We only remember the specific action or conclusion. What these guys are saying is that there should be a way, easier way or cheaper way to actually remember that entire conversation and be able to reference to it. So what they come up with this project called MemPalace, which will be able to then store that entire conversation. And the framework, the architecture in such a way that it is like a palace. It is a way in which the ancient Greek used to remember things. They would create in their mind something called memory palace, which will basically a structure to remember things, right? There are rooms which are a specific idea. There are hall which are like type of memory. There are wings that basically have people and projects in it, right? So you assign those a kind of a palace structure, and that's how you remember. And then you move between them, right? You have tunnels, you have closets, you have more raw information in drawers, things like that, right? So it's an analogy of how you remember that structure. That's how they organize it. It's an open source project. It stores locally, not somewhere in other cloud, etc. So you can safeguard your own conversations and data, etc. And it is a way. What it does is at the start, it basically loads just 170 tokens. That's about it, which costs about 7 cents per year or something like that. And it's like a wake up keyword. Once you refer to that conversation, it will then go and make a few searches, and it costs about $10 per year kind of cost. So very cost effective, and that's a new project. Amazing thing is Milla is not even like educated as AI architect, etc. But she has been playing with Claude. She has learned a lot, and then they came up with this project. It's amazing. Okay, let's talk about one more launch that happened, Jamie, and this is from Microsoft, right? So Microsoft AI team, which is led by Mustafa Suleiman, they've actually launched 3 models. MAI Transcribe 1, MAI Transcribe 1, which is basically speech-to-text transcription. It covers 25 most used global languages. Pricing starts at 36 cents per hour. Then there's a MAI Voice 1, which is basically a voice generation model for natural, realistic speech output. And then there's a MAI Image 2, which is the next iteration of image generation model. Now, these 3 different models are now available already in the Foundry. People can use it. There is a MAI Playground as well. Overall, it is clear indication that Microsoft is now developing its own strong models, and these obviously will be constituents of that model, right? But they're also releasing them in these kind of modules because they can be used individually as well, right? These are LLM based models, and they are already being rolled out in Copilot or Teams or PowerPoint, etc. Right? So Microsoft has scale in which they will use this. The biggest thing about these models is that it's not about the cost is actually at par. For example, Transcribe One is at par with Whisper from OpenAI, but like for example, the accuracy, the mean word error rate is way lower, and lower is good compared to other models, as shown on the screen here, right? So it's a highly accurate model at the same cost as the other benchmark models, but very efficient, very fast models. So I think it's a good achievement. Hopefully, we will have a frontier model from Microsoft soon to be seen as well.
Yep. And as you said, you hit on the notion of the image generation. So there's another, I'll call it a not so new kid, but a new kid on the block, and that's Meta. So Meta actually released their next generation model. Again, for those that are following along, Meta actually created a new group called MSL, or the Meta Superintelligence Labs, and this is replacing their Llama model, which has not been updated, and it's definitely been over a year. It might even be closer to like 16 or 18 months, give or take. So this is not Llama. That would be the first thing I'll say. It's been rebuilt from the ground up. So it's an all new AI stack. Again, focused on not only the ability to do just regular thinking, but it's a full-blown reasoner. It is brings together notions of agent or agentic capabilities, but it also automatically handles sub-agents within it. This is, if you go to meta.ai, it's out there now already, but it's going to be slowly introduced, I'll say soon, into things like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Messenger, as well as the glasses. I wish these were the Meta glasses. So that is like a major differentiation here. What Meta's trying to do, they're trying to create, their own model that's going to be woven into all the things that they do. And what's different here, and you'll see it in some of their taglines, is that they're calling this a person-first model, because it's going to be more of understanding the things that you do. And if you think about it, it's tied into things like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Messenger. So it knows a lot about you. It knows a lot about human behavior and the things that are being done. So although it's, quote unquote, what I'm saying, intentionally small and a fast model, doesn't mean it's not capable. So it's capable at handling complex reasoning, being able to do that reasoning across like science, math, and health. So it's a major player in that model or role. And as I mentioned before, it's able to do sub-agents, and you can see in this little image, again, if you're working this through their AI tools, you're going to be able to see that it spawns things off in sub-agents to be able to tackle these things in parallel. And that's one of the main reasons why this thing comes back very fast in the things that it does. So it's a multimodal model. It can understand images, products, charts, real world scenes and scenarios. Again, remember what it's pulling data from. And that's very helpful for everything from like doing health queries all the way out to shopping. And then again, think about the scenarios where Meta is going to be tying this into their glasses. So on the go scenarios as well. So this is right now it accesses private preview through the APIs. They're slowly, as I mentioned, rolling it out into their products as well. So, for our executives listening to this, it's important for you because this is, a scenario where Meta is a leader in consumer grade, I'm going to call it personal superintelligence now. And this is not just a model upgrade, but it really represents a strategic move that Meta is making to embed AI into all of the various different Meta surfaces. From a developer perspective, you want to think about this as, this Muse sparks a new scaling philosophy. So it's more about what Meta is trying to do to emphasize predictable and validated scaling principles into the model. So it basically suggests a different way of thinking about a shift towards reliability and reproductivity instead of just brute force parameter expansion. So again, as I said, this is a different thing that they've developed.
Okay, awesome. I think the last thing that I want to leave everybody with is a quick insight about Anthropic's revenue growth. 2021, they were founded. January 1, 2025, they were about $1 billion run rate on the revenue. And in less than 1.5 years, now their annual run rate, right? Not exact revenue, but annual run rate of revenue is $30 billion. So from 2022, when they were just about $10 million, it's a 3,000% growth in just about 4 years. Insane. Jamie, don't miss this. Make sure that you get some stocks of Anthropic.
Yep.
When this.
Yep. As soon as it comes out, I'm going to try to grab some of them for sure, even if it's just one.
Absolutely. Perfect. I think that's it. A lot of things to talk about, Jamie. Glad to be back in the flow now.
Sounds good. See you all next week. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Jamie.